Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. In the second of my reports today, we're going to have a look at something that affects society in a way that people don't often see. It's a silent service that does do some good work. It's people volunteering, putting themselves in sometimes very dangerous situations, and they're doing it more or less for nothing. They get a few expenses, but there's no salary attached. And it's something that needs to be encouraged as a form of service, but which, for some reason, the SNP don't think is worthy. And that is special constables. These are people who volunteer, go out, put on the uniform, are in every respect the equivalent of policemen. They go through the training, but they don't get paid. I believe they get some minor expenses, but other than that, they more or less do it for nothing. Penny Lancaster, Rod Stewart's wife, she's a special constable, you know. There's a woman with more money than sense and doesn't need to do it, but chooses to out of a sense of service and obligation. And, you know, you tip hat to these people. But the SNP have overseen a massive, massive reduction in numbers. And with 22-23 coming to an end, that year come to an end, there was just 32 of them trained. This is a terrible thing with thousands being lost. Well, let's have a look. Now, of course, this actually shows a severe lack of intelligence. Simply because, given how cheap it is, you know, a few expenses, the cost of a uniform and a bit of training, you don't have salaries to pay. You'd think they'd want to encourage a lot more special constables. And so one can only presume that the SNP have decided that they don't want any police in any shape or form, whether they're being paid or not. Because if there are sufficient policing numbers, the police may turn their attentions to the SNP. Or maybe that's just me being cynical, but it doesn't half seem like it. If you can get something for nothing, surely you would. But when you know that if you've got specials out there on the beat and doing these other jobs that professional police officers would be doing, it frees the professionals up to come a-looking. They don't want that. Anyway, Police Scotland's Special Constabulary is heading for extinction under the SNP, as the force loses over 1,000 officers. Data obtained by the Scottish Liberal Democrats show a huge fall in the number of volunteers, with just 32 trained last year. Yet, why? I mean, it can't be funding because it's so cheap. It must therefore be a desire to reduce the absolute and overall number of police so that they're obviously busy doing other things and too busy to investigate the SNP. I can draw no other conclusion. Police Scotland's Special Constabulary is heading for extinction under the SNP. The Scottish Lib Dems have warned. New figures show there is almost 1,000 fewer officers on the beat than a decade ago. Data provided to the party shows 409 special constables were in the force in 22-23 compared to 1,394 in 2013-14, a fall of 985. The number has fallen each year except for 2019-20. They grew that year, but now they've fallen again. And half the problem, of course, is why would people volunteer to do these things for such little reward outside of a sense of service and duty when the police themselves are being so appallingly underfunded? And the workload and the work levels are increasing. You're unnecessarily putting stress onto officers because you refuse to pay for more of them to ease the work burden on each individual officer. And this is why so many police are leaving, retiring early, going off with stress and other medical conditions. They are deliberately, and there is clear evidence that the SNP are deliberately destroying the police so that no one will investigate all the shenanigans that the SNP are getting up to. This is one of the reasons they merged them all into a single police force, so that there was total control. You only had to buy one chief constable, which they have done with this Jo Farrell, 2 weeks into a job, and she's caught stealing resources already, so they've got her over a barrel. And so now she's owned, like Ian Livingstone before her. They've got no real fear from the police anymore. They can get away with literally murder. Anyway, there were just 32 special constables trained in 22-23 compared to 90 almost a decade ago. The special constabulary is trained to the same standard as regular officers. However, it operates on a volunteer basis. They just basically get a bit of mileage money to get to work and back, and what's the word in the canteen? Subsidised food in the canteen, and that's more or less it, Lib Dem Justice spokesman Liam MacArthur said the figures are particularly concerning after Police Scotland announced a pilot initiative that will see crimes with no associated risk, harm or vulnerability not investigated by officers in the northeast of Scotland. And if this doesn't lead to vigilantism and doesn't lead to people laying traps and catching these people and doing awful things, you have to wonder what will. And of course, this is not good for society, but I understand how people feel. And I think if you're in a particular area, small village, say, that's racked by particularly one or two known individuals, it wouldn't surprise me if the village got together, pitchforks and burning torches, and did something rather rash by way of a punishment beating. Something like that. Or worse. These things will happen because there's not enough policing. The justice system is letting people down. And when justice lets people down, people take justice into their own hands. There will be trouble. There will be lynchings, effectively. Anyway, he said, on the SNP's watch, the Special Constabulary is heading for extinction at a time when the police are piloting programmes that will see some crimes go uninvestigated. You might think they could use all the help they could get. Sadly, a role with a proud history is being allowed to wither on the vine. Officers and staff are under huge pressure. On their next shift, they could be facing major incidents or dealing with complex mental health cases. That makes it all the more important to ensure they have the support they need. But the SNP don't want to support the police. The SNP wish the police weren't actually there. The police to them are an inconvenience. They represent some kind of threat against their organised crime organisation. The systemic the systemic theft of people's money, and public taxpayers' money, into those bank accounts salted away all over the world, ready for when the regime falls and they all take their emergency flights out to some third world destination with no extradition treaty. And that's what they're planning. That's why all those billions have gone missing. Anyway, the SNP government said must now repair the damage done by its botched centralisation. That includes putting the Special Constabulary on a long-term footing and ensuring officers and staff have the resources they need to tackle crime and keep people safe. They don't care about people, do they? That is obvious. A Scottish Government spokeswoman said, we value the service provided by the Special Constables, just not enough to bother training any or keep them on the books. We don't really actually value them. We just say these words because it's important that people think that we value them. She didn't say that, obviously, but that's exactly how it is. She says, our draft... Oh, this is where they give you the bullshit, right? They're saying the draft budget is a rise of £92 million, a below inflation rise, and therefore a real term cut in funding. Assistant Chief Constable Emma Bond says special constables have the same warranted powers as their full-time colleagues and play a vital role for Police Scotland in supporting operational deployments. They are effectively free policemen. They are no different from a paid officer. They have the rights, they have the training, they have the uniform, everything. They're identical. They're not your community officers, community policing officers or whatever they're called. Laptops, because they're not proper PCs, hey? But they don't have like powers of arrest and things. They're trained to a lower standard and they have lower powers, but they will always be backed up by the police. But specials are full policemen in all but salary, effectively. And you think, why not have more of them? Anyway, using what they have learned as a special constable, many have gone on to join the service as full-time police officers. Excuse me. Others have capitalised on their skill set development to seek employment advancement elsewhere. Our volunteers base sits at around 1,300, with the Police Scotland youth volunteers providing a valuable role within their communities. Yes, if so valuable, you want to increase them, surely, not cut the numbers. Not train, less than 3 a month? I mean, that's ridiculous. But then, it's all part of the plan. It's all part of the plan to get rid of the police so that the SNP can never be investigated and can never be caught. And once, as I say, the gig is up and they're done and they have to get those flights out, You know, they'll do so safe in the knowledge that they'll never see the inside of a jail cell, no matter how many old people they murder. Coming up. So there you go. No special constables. They're all a dying breed. They want them out. So they can get rid of the specials for free, weirdly. It puts even more pressure on the existing officers. A lot of them will then quit. There's a hiring freeze. There's a training freeze. Eventually, the entire police force of Scotland falls apart. And the SNP are quite clear to do anything they want. I'm surprised they haven't brought in their own special security service, given them nice shiny uniforms, very peaked caps, very highly polished boots, and nice brown shirts. I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, leave that like, and completely share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you later. Bye.